Bewildering plots, exotic locations, foreign lyrics, spectacular music, and yes, temperamental singers and conductors. This is the world of opera. In these programs, I will take you on a journey through the most thrilling art form of them all, one where all of human life and emotion are on display. Music fuses with words to create stories of love, betrayal, revenge, sorrow, passion, tragedy, and comedy, to create the stirring and most magical world of Italian opera. The Italians love opera. It's in their blood. In this film, I'll be looking at 4 composers who shaped Italian opera, beginning a whole new art form that 400 years later is still thrilling audiences. The smell of the grease paint. This is what opera is all about. I was born into this world. My father was a voice teacher, and he imbued in me a sense of theater, the voices, the love of vocal music, and just this backstage buzz just gets my blood going in a way that no other thing can. And now I'm lucky enough to have one of the top jobs in opera, music director at the Royal Opera House in London.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have 30 minutes, please. Thank you.
Today is the dress rehearsal of Barbiere di Siviglia, and I'm conducting the piece for the first time, so it's a really big moment for me, actually. The singers are all getting ready. Well, the announcement has been made that I have to get down to the pit, and so that's where I'm going now. Opera began in Italy 200 years before Rossini's highly charged Barber of Seville. And the man who composed its first undisputed masterpiece was Claudio Monteverdi. Monteverdi worked as court composer at the Ducal Palace here in Mantua. He came here in 1590 at the age of 23, employed by the powerful Gonzagas to supply music to order for all kinds of occasions. This is Vincenzo Gonzaga, Monteverdi's patron. Now here he is royally clad in ermine, and he had plenty of money for his mistresses, but was obscenely in arrears when it came to paying Monteverdi for his music. Monteverdi was treated like a slave in this ducal palace and was miserable, all the while producing heavenly music. Monteverdi wrote a wide range of music for his employer, and the fashion at the time was for extravagant courtly entertainments using speech, songs, and dance. These were going to provide the basis for something entirely new. In the late 1590s, a group of Florentine intellectuals got together and tried to find a way to combine music and drama. They wanted to return to the classical Greek and Roman idea of theater, of declamation. But what they wanted to achieve with the music and this declamation was something more expressive, more powerful, more emotional. Inspired by these ideas, Monteverdi used the Greek myth of Orpheus and created one of the first examples of what was to become a new art form: opera. Orpheus himself is a singer, so of course his story fitted perfectly with the idea of having a completely sung drama. He uses his musical powers at the gates of Hades to bring his wife back from the dead. But before the story starts, there's a prologue. In introducing his first character, the character named Music, or the spirit of music if you like, perfectly shows this marriage of speech and music. Io la musica son, che ai dolci accendi. There's no real pulse in the music, it's just free. So far tranquillo ogni turbato cuore. Just a few chords and, yes, almost spoken word, recitativo, or in English, recit. That's the shorthand we use. This sung speech was the revolutionary idea that created opera, telling a story and developing characters. Now, Orfeo, donde vieni in a different tempo? Dove vai? Where have you come from? Where are you going? Ninfa che porti. Monteverdi successfully integrated this sung speech with songs, dance, and scenic effects to create a complete dramatic world. And it was unveiled in 1607 to a delighted audience in Mantua at carnival time. The British Library holds a rare print of Monteverdi's Orfeo. I was very excited to examine it with the early music expert, Marshall Marcus. The word opera didn't really exist yet. This was called a favola, a fable, if you like, a story.
So it's like a sketch, and I'm thinking of something like, say, Kind of Blue, that famous album with Miles Davis. He goes into the studio, he's written out a little bit of stuff, he's got a few numbers here and there, and he gives it to the guys, and they use that. They create from that this extraordinary recording. This is much more akin to, I think, how Monteverdi's players are working.
So they're the jazz musicians of their time, is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I would say.
And Monteverdi used his musicians to create a whole range of moods and colors. Listen to this dance rhythm, very characteristic of Monteverdi. 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Sometimes 2 and sometimes 3. A pivotal moment is when the messenger tells Orfeo that his wife has died. Here Monteverdi creates a very special atmosphere and will, at the same time, move us deeply. A te ne vengo Orfeo, messaggera infelice.
Monteverdi said it was only through the uniting of poetry and music that it was possible to truly move an audience.
Di case più infelice, più funesto.
When Orfeo discovers that his wife has been bitten by a snake,
Oimè, che modo.
He reacts with shock. He freezes, and his musical lines freeze too.
La tua bella Euridice, oimè, Orfeo was such a success that Vincenzo Gonzaga ordered a second performance within days. This is the church in Mantua, where in 1599 Monteverdi had married the beautiful Claudia Cattaneo, one of the singers at court. Over the years, she'd kept Monteverdi going in a job that was far from ideal. Mantua is a very difficult place to live in the winter, very foggy, very humid, and the drudgery of the work that Monteverdi was expected to do from those demanding Gonzagas made their life a misery. After the triumph of Orfeo in 1607, just a few months later, Claudia died. Monteverdi was broken. Now that he lost his wife, he knew he had to get away. And this is where he came, Venezia, Venice. A powerful trading port and a rich, self-governing republic. Monteverdi was now 46, and he landed the most prestigious musical position in all of Italy, director of music at St. Mark's Basilica. He worked here for 30 years. The job gave him the financial security he craved and left him free to compose for the local nobility and rich merchants, putting on shows in their lavish private palazzi. It was Venetian mercantile wealth that led to the next big development in opera. With all this money around, opera went commercial, and in 1637 the very first public opera house was opened. And it was around this time that the word opera, which means literally work or opus, came into use to describe the new art form. It was for the commercial stage in 1643 that Monteverdi wrote his final masterpiece, The Coronation of Poppea. It was highly unusual for the time because he based it on a true story. In a theater somewhere near here, the premiere of L'Incoronazione di Poppea took place. We're on the edge of town, and the premiere took place at carnival time, when, shall we say, morality and morals in general were slightly relaxed. I say that because this is an opera about the Emperor Nero, for all intents and purposes a serial killer, and his affair with the ambitious courtesan Poppea. Now this opera is so depraved, so full of sex, ambition, murder, intrigue. This is an opera written by a 76-year-old man holding the most important church musician position in all of Italy. And for him to write something like this, which even today is quite shocking, is remarkable. Yeah, it's hard to believe, actually. The sadistic Nero is being played by a woman, but in Monteverdi's time the leading man was sung by a castrato, a vocally gifted man who had been castrated before puberty, which left him with an ethereal but often powerful unbroken voice, the fashionable sound of the day. With Monteverdi, it seems there's tremendous degrees of variety. I mean, for this film, I'm workshopping a scene from the opera with soprano Danielle Denise playing Poppea and mezzo-soprano Sarah Connolly as Nero. There's a fantastic freedom in this music, depending on how you want to color the line. Poppea and Nero have just had a night of adulterous love.
Signor de non partire, sostien che queste braccia ti circondino.
These arms that want to wrap around you.
Come le tue bellezze circondano.
With this sinuous vocal line, you can picture the lovers wrapping their arms around each other. And then what we get is a dialogue, and he's talking about, excuse me, your breasts, actually.
No, not my breasts, Poppea's breasts.
Yeah. So,
di questo se noi i pari le mamme tue le mamme più dolci
Playing Nero, you haven't to be sort of nervous about being specific and singing words like mamme, which doesn't just mean breast. It means almost like boobs, your beautiful, beautiful boobs that give me fantasies at night. That's all I think about. That's all I want to hold and touch and feel.
This would have been sensational, obviously, rather shocking, and therefore fantastic theatre. The 17th century Venetians lapped it up. They absolutely loved that kind of thing.
At the end of the opera, Nero has married Poppaea and crowns her empress, and they sing a sublime love duet.
An encircling of two people around each other where they sort of sing and echo each other's sentiments of love and devotion and commitment.
They finish on the same note, in total unison. And we very much try to tap into each other's sound, so that we are like one voice that's split in two.
The coronation of Poppaea was the culmination of Monteverdi's brilliant career and was a huge public success. Monteverdi's works were part of an explosion of opera in Venice, and by the end of the century, 16 new opera houses were built there. It soon became a booming industry right across Italy. The great composers of the day were all at it. Vivaldi, Scarlatti and Pergolesi between them wrote over 100 operas. And Naples became its next center, with the king himself a passionate supporter.
Now an opera house becomes an essential part of any proper palace. And this is a proper palace, I must say.
But being a king, in his elite theatre, he only wanted extravagant performances of opera seria, heroic stories depicting the trials and tribulations of gods, warriors and kings, leaving comedy, opera buffa, to other theatres in the city. Opera is still a thriving industry in Naples. This theatre was being restored and modernized for the 21st century when I came here. Naples was a mecca for new talent and attracted the best singers and composers from all over Europe. One of the most promising to visit was the German-born George Frederick Handel. He came here soaking up the Italian style, which was all the rage. And the well-schooled, well-connected composer exported his version of opera seria to London.
From the very beginning, Handel was exposed to the creme de la creme of English society. He lived here for 3 years at Burlington House, now home to the Royal Academy. He was the guest of Juliana, the dowager widow of the 2nd Earl of Burlington.
And when Handel's German patron was made George I, King of England, he couldn't lose. He was perfectly placed to spread the fashion for Italian opera. The king gave an annual grant of £1,000 to the theatre in the Haymarket, and Handel, now with royal patronage, went on to dominate the opera scene, opera in Italian, for the next 20 years. Handel's Julius Caesar epitomizes all the elements of his genius. Wonderful melodies, vocal and instrumental display, and at the heart of his craft, the aria, which had come a long way from its original meaning, a simple song.
If you want to be a successful opera writer in the Italian style, you've got to write great stuff for singers. And of course, that's one of the wonderful things we find with Handel. He's saying, okay, let's take the aria, let's put the singer on the stage. This is the age of the singer, really. The singers are beginning to take control because people are coming in, they're paying tickets to go and see these operas. What do they all do?
So a star system.
It's a star system.
Handel lured the best Italian singers to the capital, the pop stars of their day. They commanded huge fees and gave him the edge in London's competitive opera scene.
Danny, you've sung the role of Cleopatra in Handel's Julius Caesar to great acclaim, and I mean, it's 8 arias.
It is long.
And a duet. What's it like singing and acting out so many different kinds of emotions? Because each aria is quite different from the other, isn't it?
That's my favorite thing about singing any of the Handel heroines, that you really have a chance to explore all of the different shadings of character of Cleopatra. Especially, you get a chance to really start with all of the playfulness and all of the bounce in her character, and then you sort of move to the seductive, and then on to some of the more powerful arias.
While he was in Italy, Handel refined his use of the da capo aria form, or what we in the business call ABA form. Now, da capo means from the beginning. And so a singer would sing an aria, would sing the first part, the A section, expressing a single thought. In this scene, Caesar is furious because he's just been presented with the severed head of a Roman general. Then they would continue on to the B section, which would express a contrasting thought, or in this case, a heightening of Caesar's anger. Then he would come back to the first section, the A section, but this time the singer was expected to ornament the melody, to embellish it, to bring new colors to it. Can you give us an idea what you would do with even something that's already quite florid? I mean, when you're doing these ornaments, you're going higher, you're going lower,
As you would if you were in a towering rage with somebody, I suppose.
Tempio dirò tu sei, togli gli occhi miei, sei tutto crudeltà, sei tutto crudeltà. Sei tutto crudeltà. Tempio dirò tu sei, tempio dirò tu sei, togli gli occhi miei, sei tutto crudeltà.
The capo aria should always be screwing up the dramatic tension as well as being musically accomplished and as well as entertaining the audience and provoking big applause at the end of the number.